Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lawrence Salerno, and I oversee the business development piece of ARRO. And we are very excited to have you join us today as we walk through how ARRO automates the ICS G14 process. We understand that everyone has very busy schedules, so we do appreciate you taking time out of that. And we really hope to kind of show you how ARRO handles this particular issue, as we've heard from many people going through this what is largely a manual process, how ARRO automates this process to make your lives much easier during emergency response, allowing you to put your needs towards other things and then help with the reimbursement process. So with that said, we don't anticipate this taking the entire hour. We should have, I think we're about a half an hour in time, allowing for some questions and then giving you a little bit of time back today. So before we get started, I wanted to quickly introduce myself. It's like Lawrence Salerno, and I'm the business development. I lead business development for ARRO. Taking us through part of this journey will be Tim Thacker. He'll take over here in a second. He'll kind of walk us through how the system handles all of this. And Tim leads our customer experience and innovation group for the product of ARRO. Just at a very high level, what we're hoping you can kind of take away from this today is one, since this is a very focused webinar, to really understand how we easily automate that ICS G14 process. We know that can be a burden on you, as I mentioned earlier. So just how the tool, makes that a little bit easier for you. And we'll talk about this here in a second for a very high level, but what other uses you could use ARROs for within your organization. And then kind of lastly, last takeaway is how do I find out more info on ARRO or schedule a more in-depth conversation. So let me just take a quick step back for a second before we jump into a very detailed problem to kind of give you an idea of what is ARRO. So for many of those, if you don't know, I'm sorry, ARRO is a real-time personnel equipment and reimbursement tracking SaaS solution. So ideally, at a very high level, we want to help you care for your people, respond better, and recover faster. ARRO, what it does is it tracks your deployed emergency responders and administrative staff, as well as the equipment used and the purchases made, all on your mobile device, your tablet, or your laptop. ARRO creates a digital audit trail, helping you avoid deobligation, enabling you to track time and resources of all event-related expenses kind of in real time. So in general, what ARRO is that it is a central platform for authorization, approval, and auditability, right? So it kind of allows you to do all of those things via the platform. It allows for recovery, including the reimbursement process, to begin at the start of an event. So what we like to think of here is that ARRO tracks costs, not only of people, but of equipment, and then the purchases made. So it allows you to start claiming Cat B reimbursement at the beginning of an event. And then it's built to adapt to the unknown. So we realize that you may need the system for only a few users during blue sky events, but you may need it to scale up during gray sky events. And the system does that very easily. And it's not a tool that's built for hurricanes or for wildfires or for tornadoes. It's built for kind of everything. So it adapts the unknown. It's very scalable. It's very easy to use. So it doesn't require a ton of training, any training at all from the mobile side of it. So it allows your people to access this quickly, efficiently, get the data that you need, the structured data that you need to be able to go through and do the to report on the mission accurately, completely, and then in the end, get reimbursed for it. A few points that I do want to point out here is that it is a cradle to grave system. So it is used all the way from the time of when the activation occurs. So the response piece of it, all the way through the recovery piece of it and the reimbursement side of it, right? It could also be used during blue sky events for small emergencies that may not be, that go up the chain, as well as training events. It integrates in with other systems. We integrate in with WebEOC and some other ancillary systems out there. What we really want to try to drive is avoid double entry from one system to another. So we're agile and be able to integrate into other systems. And then we keep track of costs. We've not seen many other systems that do that. So we track costs all the way from what my equipment is costing me to the purchases made, to even being able to allocate some of your administrative costs so that you may be able to recoup CAT Z a little bit easier. So with that said, that's my kind of high level pitch for you on ARRO. What we'll do now is I'll let Tim kind of take over and drive the more focused and the reason that we're all here today of showing how we automate that 214 process. Tim, go ahead, take it over.
Great, thank you, Lawrence. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Tim Thacker. I'm with the ARRO team, and today we're going to talk more about how ARRO can help you track incidents, people, generate FEMA forms, other type of evidence documents, specifically today, the ICS 214 form for activity tracking from that side. So let's talk a little bit about how we get here. One of the big issues that we encounter, and we've been in the emergency management space for a number of years with various different states that we deal with, especially with the National Guard. We're pretty heavy on the National Guard side for being able to deal with emergency management and stuff like that. One of the big things that we deal with is how people are tracking this information, right? Normally, it comes in with paper forms to where we're handing out forms to people. They're going out in the field. They're trying to write all the information down. They have to bring that information back in. We put it in these huge accordion folders, and then somebody has to try to interpret the handwriting and what did you mean? And we lost this piece of paper. It just becomes a real difficult process to manage this information coming in these paper forms. Even if we get them faxed or email, we're now trying to sift through who sent this, how do we have this? And what we've discovered working with various states and different things like that is they just have these stacks of paper that they're now trying to go through and do an interpretation of what actually happened 2 months ago or 3 weeks ago from John, whose handwriting is so bad or he spilled coffee on it or something like that. Or they'll get more sophisticated and they'll use spreadsheets. So they'll start with spreadsheets and they'll start doing this. So now you send a template of a spreadsheet out, and next thing you know, you get 50 of these spreadsheets coming back in via email, and somebody's changed the formulas, somebody's changed the columns, and now you become an Excel spreadsheet master because you're trying to configure all that data coming back in and get these things to line up so you can at least keep track of what's happening. It becomes a real problem, all this unstructured data in various formats, and how to be able to track this. Plus the fact that sometimes people in the field don't come in for 2 to 3 days or a week or 2 weeks. And so that information now is 2 or 3 weeks old. And now somebody forgot to put something on the form. They're trying to remember what happened 2 weeks ago in an event like for us down here in Florida, like an Ian, where it just devastated a whole community. They barely remember what happened yesterday, let alone 2 weeks ago. So what we wanted to be able to do with ARRO is track the information in real time in the place that it occurs, where that contact point is, and that's in the field. Now, we hear this all the time. Everybody's system said, yeah, we're going to let the field track this kind of information. And then it becomes a training issue. Now you have to train the field on how to use this. You've got to take these people who are in a hyperactive environment trying to deal with an emergency and say, well, we want to use this piece of software so that at the end of this, we have all the data. So with ARRO, we've come up with, we think, is a pretty innovative idea to allow the people in the field to, with no training, be able to function and be able to capture the data you want, which we'll kind of go through that of how we capture that data at the point of contact. So that the people in the field are doing and answering a series of questions that you've designated, and they're just simply answering questions on a daily basis with different activities and different things like that to be able to bring it back through. Because what we really want is structured data. If we can capture that structured data for personnel, equipment cost tracking, purchases, different pieces of information such as that, in a structured way, it is easier for us to take that structured data and then be able to produce those activity forms and the different documentation that we need. Plus, it also assists in being able to make sure that you've captured it in real time, because when it is captured out in the field, you can see that data flowing in real time back at the management level. There are 3 areas to what ARRO does. We have a manager side. We've got the mobile side, which we're going to talk about today. We have a third side, which is our reimbursement module, which we're not really going to touch on today, where all that data kind of accumulates and that's the end result of everything. Like Lawrence mentioned, ARRO is cloud-based. We actually run in Microsoft Azure. So that provides us a lot of benefits from that side. The reliability of Microsoft Azure, because it is stretched across the United States. We're in the continental US, and we have that ability to be able to handle that if a geographical area gets hit with some sort of incident, that Microsoft does have that ability to geolocate us to another location, so we don't necessarily have to deal with the fact that where the servers were sitting has taken some sort of incident. It's scalable. So the system is designed to, as the load increases, it will automatically scale out so that it can handle as many users that are coming into it as possible. It scales out and retracts. And one of the benefits of this is the users never know this happened. There's no management from your side. You don't have to come in and say, can we scale out? It just automatically scales and collapses. It just is able to handle those peak loads. It's secure. It actually uses Microsoft's Active Directory, which is the same thing that you do if you log into your Office 365 accounts. It's two-factor authentication, either with Microsoft Authenticator app or via text messages to be able to get the codes to be able to come back in. And so we know who's coming in, so your data is secure. You're actually in your own separate database from everybody else, so it makes it very secure, reliable, and scalable to handle that kind of information. We actually don't delete any data. So one of the things that really is helpful that we've used, we've got some clients who have been on the system for a number of years. And now what's happening is they're able to use this data and now start doing future planning with it. So they're able to come in and see, well, what did we do last year with these wildfires or for the last 5 years? How does that help us plan and budget going forward? So because of that, we're able to keep that structured data and be able to help with future planning from that side. It does a bunch of things. It tracks, and we'll get into it just here in a second. It gets into tracking incidents, primary and secondary missions. So you can be as macro or micro as you want for what you're trying to check. And as Lawrence mentioned, we do integrate with WebEOC. In fact, Florida National Guard integrates with WebEOC because they use WebEOC as the mission tasking, but they use ARRO as their mission execution. And that allows them to build this common operating picture. So they know what's happening, where it's happening at, what is being used to make sure that the mission is fulfilled, and who is engaged in that mission from that side. And so let me just kind of walk you through what we do on this. This is Manager. And part of what Manager does for us is this is where you would set something up at your EOC or at the manager or your emergency management center, where you're really dictating how you want to respond to whatever that incident happens to be. ARRO's been used for everything from hurricanes to wildfires to flooding, Super Bowls. It really gets a workout, especially we got a really good workout during COVID, being able to manage all the types of pieces of information that comes through. Because of this wide range of possible incidents and activity that they do, one of the things that we allow this to do is be able to be flexible in how you can handle this. And part of that flexibility is how we actually build up teams. So part of what we do is we can come down here and create templates of different types of teams. Most of our clients, when they do deploy out in teams. ARRO can track individuals, but it's really well suited to be able to tracking a team. So you can actually create a template for what a team would look like. So if you have a hazardous response team or a search and rescue team or an engine team or something like that, you can define who is in those positions, how many people you want in there, and how to really work with that. And really what this helps with, especially if you do any kind of emacking or anything like that, this also leads you in to be able to come up with costing if you need some additional help, or if you're providing help. Then this allows you to come up and say, well, if you want us to send a team down, this is the people that's going to take to be able to do that. So now it helps with emacs and being able to process actual payments and different things like that. From inside of here, you can do things like add new team members. You can create those positions. Some states, for example, will use the FEMA position task books because they want the exact information down there. Others will use whatever makes sense for them. It really just depends on how you want to work with it. It's flexible enough to be as, so that you can capture exactly what you want. We let you indicate whether somebody is a leader, and we'll talk about that when I get to the mobile side. It just means that the leader now can track activities or purchases or equipment usage for an entire team. So you're not asking the 5 people of that team to individually track it. The leader can track for that entire team, and we will show you here in a few minutes how that translates into that ICS 214. And then you can say how many people you want in here. It really does provide you with the ability to create these teams and however works best for you. And you can have as many of these templates as you want. If you need some for various situations, you can just create these however you need to from that side. Now, because of this, so we can create a team, we can be able to come in here and be able to see exactly what's going on. The next big issue that we always get asked is, well, my incidents are always unique. There's no possible way you could know what's happening in our world, and it changes. If you would have asked us 3 years ago, 4 years ago, do we have to worry about PPE, vaccinations, COVID, distribution centers or vaccination centers? Those weren't even part of our lexicon. Now it's kind of our daily activity of what we have to deal with and different things like that. So part of that is we come up with what we think is a pretty simple solution to help reduce that training in the field. In fact, it is actually one of our core tenets is simplicity, to make this, especially at that point of contact in the field, ARRO to be as simple as possible, because you don't have time to watch a bunch of YouTube videos or to read a bunch of manuals when you're in the middle of dealing with a Hurricane Ian or a wildfire or civil unrest or something like that. So we wanted to be able to do something that made this really pretty simple for the field to be able to get into with minimal training. Part of that is we have what we call a question builder. This is how we capture this structured data for you. Since we don't know what the incidents are going to be a year from now or 3 years from now, what you do is you can come in here and build these questions however you want. So for example, one of the questions that we can ask are yes, no type questions. Are you able to work? That's a simple question that you can come through and say, can you work? And it's the user will just simply get a yes or no response. And if they answer yes, I'll show you here in just a minute, you can send them down a whole different path of questions if you want to ask from there. If you want to ask text questions, describe the activity that you were in, describe the accident, describe the injury, whatever you happen, you have the ability to build a question that says, look, we need some text from you to give us some context of what's happening. Since we do track equipment, you can actually come in here and we can import equipment inventory, and this allows you to basically come through and say, this team just used these generators, or we just used this equipment for whatever purposes, these consumables, so that we now know that that team just used that information from that side. You can also track things like time spans, where we'll come in and say, you work from this time to this time, and I'll show you here in just a second what that looks like. So we have a number of different things that you can do in here, everything from uploading a file. So if you want them to take a picture of out in the field of some work that they're doing, they can actually come in and say, we need a picture of that. They can upload a file, copy of a receipt, PDFs, different things like that. You can ask text questions, number questions, and a various number of different question types that you have in here. As you build this out, as you've got your questions starting to build, now what you can do is actually put those into what we call the question list. And part of that question list allows you to take those individual questions and build that question list. So for example, this is what it would look like on an activation. We typically go through about 4 different types of questions. There's an activation style list of questions that if it's the first time on an incident, you want to be able to capture data before that person actually starts. And you can ask any type of question, do you have all your PPE? You can actually put checklist questions in here and different things like that to be able to track exactly what you want them to know before they even start. Once they come in here, you can define how this question list works. So for example, if I were to take this able to work, I can drag and drop this and just attach it here. And now that will add that to this list question. So now the field will get this question. Are you able to work or not? And if I'm not able to work, I can actually come over here and put this, I'm not able to deploy. I can drag and drop it over here and it will send me down this path and let me head down that path. If I answer, no, I am not able to deploy, then you can ask questions like, can you tell us why, and then run them down that path that way. So you can have complete control and flexibility to be able to do what you need to do. One of the things I like to say is, this is pretty mundane stuff, asking a series of questions. So I like to, think of ARRO as handling this mundane so that you can focus on that extraordinary. We just went through a really pretty tough hurricane season down here in Florida with Ian and with Nicole coming up, hitting us there. There was a lot of activity and incidents that were going on. A lot of people came down here to help. The last thing that people want to deal with is how do we track this information in real time, because we're trying to pull people out of houses and different things like that. The problem comes into after the fact. Now you need to start seeking that reimbursement because your community just got devastated, but you have no evidence documents to back things up. So we try to take that mundane and make it as simple as possible so that you can come back in and capture that data and get the reimbursement and get back to normal as quickly as possible. Part of that, as we've gone through, we've set up a team, we've come through, we've set up some questions, we've built some question lists, we've got different things in here like what kind of activities do I want to do? What deactivation questions do I want to be able to come in here and ask and different things like that. Now we can actually come in and start building out an incident. So for example, I'm in Duval County. I've spun up an incident down here for Duval County. I can come in here and capture information about that incident. If we had a link to WebEOC or another system like that, we could integrate that in and automatically populate some of this information. But we can go through and track different things about that incident. We can track, for example, a start date. And one of the things that helps with that is it prevents somebody from tracking time or logging equipment cost or anything like that prior to that. So you don't have to necessarily worry that somebody's trying to track time before you got an actual declaration that the incident is ready to start. We also do things like this. We have things where you can put max number of hours. We've had incidents where FEMA has rejected some things because they had contractors or other people working 26, 27 hours in a day. So you can put some business rules in here and say, look, you can't log more than 12 hours or 14 hours a day during an incident to protect yourself from having those de-obligations and being able to get rejections from FEMA. This area down here is where you determine for this particular incident, these are the questions that I want to ask during an activation, during activity tracking, what I want to ask for questions or what I want for deactivation. So this is where you would take that question list and be able to apply it to that particular incident. So here in Florida, for example, if Jacksonville were lucky enough to get another Super Bowl, we could come in and have a Super Bowl list of questions and be able to ask those type of questions, which would be different than a hurricane or a wildfire or anything like that. We're actually able to track as many different primary missions as you have. And those primary missions can be within, so you can do things like you can set a start date as long as it's equal to or greater than when the incident is. So you can have, as missions are evolving, you can have these things come up. And the same thing, you can come in here and put categories on them. You can put secondary missions in here, and it's truly unlimited to the number of missions that you can do and the number of sub-missions that you can do in here or secondary missions. One of the things that as you do this, and now we've got the incident set up, you can come over now and start designating the teams. So as the teams are getting spun up and you're now starting to designate those people, you can come over here and designate who the actual individuals are that are going to fulfill that team template. And there's a couple of things that you can do with this. For example, you can come over here and we have the ability to send notifications to the team. So I can designate, I need to send a notification to the team. It'll show up on the ARRO mobile website, just like a normal notification up here by the bell icon. So if you're telling them, hey, we have supplies that you need to pick up at this location, you can actually come over here and send a message to everybody or just the leads of the team and send a message out to them so that they can see in real time what's happening, so they can communicate one way or the other. You can actually come over here also and add additional people. It will tell you based on your template, this is how many people you filled out. This is who's left on this team, right, to be able to come in. So you can put down additional people. You'll see, you'll get a list of people to be able to know who's left to be able to assign them to the and then mark them whether they're active or inactive, being able to manage that in that real time to be able to create these teams and send them on the way. This will tell you how many teams you have active on this incident at this time. So you get a really pretty good idea for that common operating picture. What is our response level at this point? How are we doing with all of that? So now we've set a team, we've set questions, we've got an incident, we've assigned people to our teams. Now we're actually ready to jump over, and I'm going to jump over and become as though I'm out in the field. So it's mobile based. Let me tell you a little bit about how the mobile works. It's just a website, but it will show up on your phone. So it's mobile responsive. So it will work on your phone and you'll be able to see it. It'll adapt to whatever the device is. So if it's an iPad or an iPhone or an Android, it really doesn't matter from our side. But when I log in, if there's any notifications, I'll get the bell icon up here at the top. If any active operations that are going on, I'll see them here. And I simply can just select on that active operation. And this is my first time in. So it's going to start me through those series of questions that we have. So I have not activated yet. So I'm going to walk through an activation. ARRO knows some information about me. So if one of the questions is, what's your home of record? It's going to automatically populate that for me if it has it. If this is not right, I can actually come over to this and I can change this to 345 Oak. And I'll put me back in Jacksonville. 32256. Okay, so I can change that if it needs to update and be able to walk through. Because we tried to keep this as simple as possible, all I have to do is hit the next button and it will bring me over to the next series of questions. So I can sit here and say, am I able to deploy? I can go backwards if I need to. I can answer no, which would send me down a different path. But yes, I'm able to deploy for this. So I'm going to go ahead and answer yes. And have I submitted my release form? Yes. So now, as far as ARRO is concerned, I am activated for this incident. That information now is also available up at the manager side. So the manager can see as teams are activating who has been activated, who has gone through the process, and now they're actually able to see that this team is fully ready to go. Or, for example, Louisa has not activated yet. So now we can start trying to find out what's going on. So they get real-time information on who's ready and who's moving forward. So my team's all in place. I'm ready to start going through this. So now I want to be able to start tracking our activities for today. So I come in, it defaults to today. And so from here, I can actually click on the calendar. I can go backwards if I need to. I can see previous days. For example, I can come back here and look at March 1st. I can see what I've got down here for different staffing, different things like that. But I want to put some information in here for today. So I'm going to come in here, hit the plus button to add a new activity tracking. And because I'm the team lead, it's going to ask me, who is this for? I can select one of us, all of us, and be able to come in here and dictate exactly how I want this to work. So I'm going to say that we're all here, and then it'll come back in and track that, hey, we're tracking for 3 team members. So everything I do from this point will apply to all of us on this team. So again, I just hit the next button. And it's going to start asking me, well, what is that primary mission that you're working on? This will only display missions to me that are active based on my date range and how I set up those primary missions. So I'm going to pick the racetrack road mission here. And then it's going to say, well, do you have a secondary mission that you're working with? I'm going to put traffic control point because I know I'm going to do a traffic control point today. And then it's going to come in and say, well, when did you work on this? So I can actually open this up and I'm going to select that we did our traffic control point from 9 a.m. to, I'll switch that to PM and go 5 p.m. So now I know from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. I'm working on this mission. And because I set this question list up, if you set a different type of questions, if you wanted at this point to say, well, you need to upload a GPS map of where you're at, or you need to upload a picture of the traffic control point or the barrier set, you can set whatever type of questions you want. For me, I'm just going to write in here, managed traffic control point at Racetrack Road and A1A, okay? And then I'm going to submit it. It's going to log that for me. Because it's being logged, now they actually can see this back, so they can track what's happening in real time back on Manager to be able to see what's happening. So they can see what questions I've asked and answered on activities. They can see what I'm tracking here so that they get a real time, that common operating picture of what's happening across the board from that point. So now I've been in the field. I'm starting to track my information. I've gone through all this information. I can continue doing this for 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 day, 5 days. It really doesn't matter. I can adjust the teams. I can do whatever I need to. I'm really capturing this data in a very structured way so that I can begin to work with it. And then I can complete, I can do a deactivation. I can do different things like that. As I finish this and it's ready to go, back on the manager side, I can actually come back over to this manager side of the world. And as I'm coming through this, now I'm coming down to part of what we're talking about today, which is how do I take that activity information and generate that ICS 214? Well, I can do that in a number of different ways. I can generate it for everybody, or I can come to a specific team and say, I need the ICS 214 form for what this team has done. When I click on this, it'll actually generate it. It'll open it up and it will give you the ICS 214. It'll fill the information that we have, tell you who's on there, what home agencies. It'll go through and break down all the activity that they were involved in and be able to give you this entire ICS 214 and close that loop. So the recap where we've kind of been with this, you know, we've created teams. We've created incidents, we've populated those teams, and then those teams have filled out that structured data at the point of contact in real time. That information's coming back up into Manager. They can massage that data, look at it, and do different things like that. And then they can take that information and generate this ICS 214. Now, it's not the end of the picture for what ARRO does. ARRO actually has a whole reimbursement module where we would take this type of evidence documents. We would take the data that you inputted in and then help you build a reimbursement packet for FEMA or for any other agency like CAL FIRE or any Department of Natural Resources or anything like that you're seeking reimbursement for. It would allow you to kind of do that. There are many, many more features in ARRO, such as equipment cost tracking. We track purchases. We have checklists. So if you need a checklist of equipment that you need to be able to verify during an activity or during deactivation or activation, you can do that. We've got the full reimbursement module and much, much more. You know, and that's pretty much concludes what we wanted to talk about from, at least from my side. I do appreciate you guys joining us today. I hope you found the information informative and helpful, and I'm going to open it up for any questions that we have, and then we can kind of answer any questions that you guys may have.
Thank you, Tim. For those on the line, please utilize the chat feature to enter questions. We're going to moderate those questions here. I do have, Tim, I do have a couple of questions that have come in. So we can start moving through those. So the first question that I received reads, is this an app that needs to be downloaded?
Good question. No, so you don't actually have to install anything on your phone if you're talking about the mobile side. It's what's called a progressive web app. So it's just a regular website. What it does, though, is it can conform to how your phone works. And with Apple and Android, you actually can do what they call an install, but it doesn't install an app. It literally just creates a link on your phone that allows you to access that information. So that now you have that ready to go, but there's nothing to install. We find that installing, trying to get people to install applications for their job on their personal phones is kind of a touchy subject. So we just made the decision, this is going to be a progressive web app, so it will just adapt to your phone. So no, there's nothing actually to install.
Great, thank you, Tim. We have another question here that reads, is there any limit to the number of individuals or teams that can be tracked?
So no, there's actually no limit. The way that it works is that each client has their own set of databases. So we handle up to, in California, for the California National Guard, we have 20,000 people that we work with there. And so we can handle any number of people. In a blue sky, it's typically smaller. In a gray sky, because we're up in Azure, it scales really nicely to be able to come up, and all of a sudden Azure will just start popping additional hardware out there for us to be able to handle that surge in load. So no, and since we don't delete anything, your documents are safe because it's all kept in Azure's blob storage, and we can keep it all up there. Those theoretically, we have no end to the amount of data that we have up in Azure.
Great. Thank you, Tim. All right. We do have one more question in here, and that reads, is there any limit to the number of individuals or teams that can be tracked? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. That was a repeat. Let's see. There was a third. Give me a second. No, I think that, am I able to track individuals as well as teams?
Yes. So we just set this up as a team for the demo, but I am able, for example, if April were on the team, she could actually go out and not be on a team, and we would just track her individual. My members of my team, for example, that are not marked as a leader, they could come out. For example, Louisa on my team could use her phone to track separate. So if for today she needed to leave and go to another location, she could track her time independent of being part of the team. So we do allow that ability to keep a team together, but you can also break the teams apart as needed, and being able to, handle those situations where I need to send part of my team to go do something different. We can do that without any problem whatsoever.
Wonderful. Those are all of our questions that we've received. If anybody else on participating wants to ask a question, please insert that into the chat. Otherwise, Lawrence's contact information is on the screen, and he would be available for any questions hereafter. So that said, Lawrence, did you want to close anything out, or Tim?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Just quickly, thank you all for joining us. We would love to hear any feedback you may have, or any questions about how we could help you going forward with this. Feel free to reach out to me. My email and phone number are on there, as well as arrowsystems.com is the website. Feel free to go look on that. That may be able to give you a little bit more information on the product and some of the things that we've done and kind of the complete package there. I think we will be sending out this recording as well as the slides to you guys after the fact, so you'll have that information in your inbox here soon. But thanks again, and we look forward to hearing from you regarding ARRO. Thanks so much.
Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day.